Oh, great. We can leave those doors open. It's an open meeting. Yeah, thanks. Okay, thank you, everybody. I will call to order this open meeting of the New Westminster Police Board for February 20th, 2024. We start our meetings in New Westminster by recognizing and respecting that New Westminster is on the unceded and unsurrendered lands of the Halkah speaking peoples. We acknowledge that colonialism has made invisible their histories and their connections to the land. And as a city, we're learning and building relationships with the people whose lands we're on. First item on the agenda is an adoption of the open agenda for February 20th. Take a motion. Seconded. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Carried. And we have 8 items on the consent agenda, 2.1 through 2.8. Does anyone need anything pulled from the consent agenda? I see Drew first. 2.5. 2.5. Anyone else? Oh, Mary?
I was 2.5 as well and 2.7.
2.7. Patrick, I don't know. Or Heather, okay. Sorry, I need to go through real quickly and figure out what. Actually, I would like to pull 2.8, just the conversation around the BCAPB conference. So I'll pull that. So can I get a motion to approve items 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, and 2.6? Moved, seconded, all in favor, all opposed, carried. Which brings us to 2.5, Drew, governance, report on human resources.
Couple other questions. Can someone define operational with restrictions?
That would be, sorry, I'm just looking at the other categories here, making sure I've got this correct. That would be accommodations. So is not fully operational, but can do some police duties, but not fully able to deploy to the road.
Okay. Thank you. I did the newest police department experience rating percent trend. I didn't really follow this table. Can someone explain it to me? It's on page I don't know.
Page
1257.
Page 4 of the package, but yeah. Of the, this is the work safe rating trend.
This one, unfortunately, Inspector Perry isn't here, and this is new to our report, but my understanding is it basically is how the higher, so back in 2018, that would mean that we're not doing well in regards to injuries. I don't know why it's called experience rating trend.
Because I think it's how much you pay as well. I think
yeah,
more 70–80% more, and then as you go now, we're paying 20% like
less
below the average.
Right. Why it's called experience rating trend, that I couldn't give you an answer for.
Okay.
Inspector Perry is the expert on the WorkSafe stuff, but it's a good trend. And we're getting, like Heather said, we're getting actually a discount on our premiums. But why it's called that, I don't know.
Okay. No, that's good.
I think it's called that because it's like based like on like how well your organization is doing.
Experiencing.
Yeah.
Those are my 2 questions. Thank you.
Okay. Mary?
Thank you. My questions are related to page 10 of the package. I think it's 2 of the report. And I just wanted to understand a little bit further about the staffing demographics. It feels a tiny bit, I guess, old school to have it broken down only into gender and ethnicity. And I'm wondering if we've ever considered any further breakdown of the staffing demographics, whether it's maybe languages spoken, actual ethnicities, sexual orientation, any of sort of the other things that might.
I don't think this is staffing. Isn't this people that they've taken into custody?
No,
that's another role.
That's another report.
We have that one too.
Yeah, this is just staffing. So I just wondered, like, do we collect it and you're only reporting this, or do you not collect any other details about staffing?
This is, it's kind of a combination of both. So historically, we've never captured that data.
Yeah.
We've now gone to a new HR software program.
Yeah.
That is allowing us to capture more data. But obviously there's also sensitivities to what information we are allowed to ask. So we're starting out with the ones that you have there. We're still not completely gone through that process yet.
Okay.
And as we work with that program, get our new HR manager in, I think you will see some of those categories expanded, and we'll also be able to utilize more of our software program to capture that. Right now, folks are self-identifying within there.
Yeah.
So that probably is how we'll roll it out as we continue down this path. But right now, that's the only data that we have.
Okay, I
But-
just think for future, it would be, I think it would be healthier to understand how our membership represents the community or doesn't, and where are the gaps that we need to consider. So I think that would just be really useful to have a deeper insight into that.
And that's very helpful too. It's similar to what I think we're going to talk about in 2.7.
Yeah,
The board can direct the department on other data that they would like to see come out of it, and we'll work towards fulfilling
Okay.
that. So that's helpful. So we'll pass that on to Andrew as he works through that program.
okay, great, thank you. That's my only question. I can, is this for receipt?
Yeah.
Question for you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry,
We have that, we want to have that as for information, but we want to use that, like, for example, if there's a crisis in Queensborough and somebody speaks Farsi, so we can put those officers that speak Farsi to that, or what's the idea?
I mean, I don't want to answer it operationally.
No, but I think that.
But for myself, I just think that if we are collecting that data about the community, it'd be really helpful to understand what the force also looks like. And how our membership reflects the community that they're serving in, whether they do or don't reflect it. I just think that more information about the members would be really useful.
It's a better insight to diversity, equity, and inclusion,
Yeah,
essentially.
Yeah, like, when we're doing a recruitment, what kind of members are we hoping to recruit as well? Where are there some gaps in our membership? So that's why I'm asking, why I think it's useful. Does that answer you? Yeah.
Good, thanks. So did you want to move?
Oh, I can.
Oh, actually, no, maybe I'll ask. I made a comment in this report. Thank you for this detail. It's actually really useful. It's actually great to hear about. Recognizing that we're doing great recruiting, but we're entering into, I think you called it a buyer's market here. It's actually, I think, a seller's market. I think they're selling services to, but anyway, it doesn't matter. We envision recruiting challenges in the near future because, you know, the market around the region is changing and we're going to be competing for fewer and fewer candidates, I suspect, in the upcoming years.
Yes, and just on that note, and sorry, I'm just, as I flip through my million pieces of paper that I came prepared for, we're seeing another surge of experienced officers leaving the organization for various reasons, mainly just tenure options. So with our organization, we have tenure in all our, and I'm speaking purely on the sworn member side. We have tenure in all our positions. So if you go to a special unit, you're only going to be there for a certain length of time. And every municipal department in the province has the same restrictions. The RCMP does not have that. So we've seen a surge in individuals going to the RCMP. So far this year, we've lost 6 members, mainly to the RCMP, strictly for that reason. Their opportunity to stay in the specialty squad and stay there throughout their entire career rather than having to be moved around. So I think to the mayor's point, we saw in 2023, we lost 7 for the entire year. The first 2 months of 2024, we've lost 6. So I think it's just another one of those flips that we're going to see. We're still on the sworn member side fully staffed, but again, as the board knows, we have a lot of folks that are in training and different things that take time to get fully deployed. So I think it's now at another one of those peaks that we're going to experience where we're going to see a lot of turnover. And so that does obviously impact some of the things that we maybe would like to do when it comes to recruiting. We have to go with what we have and get the best candidates. Obviously, we're not going to lower our standards, but sometimes it just makes it a little bit more challenging.
Thanks. And the other comment I was going to make, it was actually on the same thing on the experience rating trend. Even if we don't know the details of it, we recognize it's saving us money. But also it means this is a safer workplace than it was in 2018. I mean, that's what WCB is saying, is they can afford to charge us less for the rates because it's a safer workplace, and that's obviously good work. It's actually a good consideration to take. And I appreciate the work the staff has done to bring us to that point. It's a good trend to be on.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think it's a combination of both the work we've done recruiting, getting resilient officers in there, because obviously this isn't just you know, your typical broken bones. There's many aspects of WorkSafe that get involved here. So kudos for the training staff, the recruiting staff, and everyone, because it is a positive development.
Okay, if there's any other questions or comments, can I get a motion to receive?
Second.
Moved, seconded, all in favor, all opposed, carried. Unbiased policing audit, 2.7, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you for this report. I think it answers some of the questions or comments or discussions that we've had previously, so I really appreciate the information. I just want to clarify a couple of things. This report is only related to prisoner bookings, is that right? It's not any kind of interactions or checks or any of those things. It's just people who actually get booked into.
Correct.
Okay, all right. And then the other question I wanted to ask is, so I know that a fairly large grouping of residential status is outside of the jurisdiction of New West. So that makes this a little bit trickier, but I think what would also be helpful going forward is to understand how the ethnicity stats compare with the ethnicity of New West. So I'm sure that you can find that, but it would be helpful to understand that going forward as well as how they reflect each other. I think that would be really useful information to have against each other when looking at this report. I know it's tricky with the jurisdiction piece, and I guess that's people that are transiting through New West. Is that largely, like, what would have someone be booked here that doesn't live here?
They commit their crime in the West.
Yeah.
Okay,
like a-
so it happens here, but they don't live here.
Exactly.
Okay, so I guess that it would be interesting to try to understand that a bit further, but I would like to know kind of how these bookings reflect the population that lives here. I think that would be great. And then I wanted to know, is this something like, I know that you talked about this being fairly new reporting for us. So will this be done on a regular basis or a regular reporting out, or what is the plan for that?
This is you're bang on. This is completely new. So this is part of a new provincial policing standard. This is the first time it came into effect July of 2023.
Yeah.
And the legislation requires us to audit, do an annual analysis on 3 areas. And this happens to be one of them. 3 areas, right?
Yeah, one of three. One of three.
Yeah.
So we just selected this one. I think that you're going to see a lot of growth and development on this as we work with police services on what exactly they're looking for, because what happens now, once the board accepts this report, we send it off to police services also for their information. But I think it provides the board the opportunity to also, if there's other areas, there is a kind of an open caveat. C says other records as identified by the board within the legislation. So the board can kind of ask us, so that, the direction that the board's hearing is about, breaking it down by the population of New Westminster. That really helps us as we move forward. This doesn't mean though that next year we would do the exact same one, but I think maybe what may be beneficial as we move through the rest of the year is maybe come back to the board and say, of these categories, what would you like us to look at for in 2025? And maybe even some more specifics on what you might be looking for, because we have that flexibility. As long as we do one a year and we send it to the government, then we're all good. But the board has a lot of say in this and a lot of kind of input into what we want to do with that data. So again, this is a learning thing for us and the board on what we might want it to develop. So whether we focus solely on this one, the prisoner bookings, or if there's another area that maybe the board's interested in looking at, we can do that. So thank you for that. And myself or the deputy will report back to the board as this progresses through with police services on what exactly maybe they're seeing, what other departments. We did do a lot of reaching out to other departments to see what they're doing. I don't know where it didn't sound like a lot of departments have really landed on what they're going to do this year. So I think this will be an interesting thing to view as the rest of the year goes forward into 25.
Thank you for that. I think that this is really interesting and useful information. I would hate it to be a one-off, so that next year we do something completely different. So maybe it's a way that we can incorporate it into our regular reporting, but improve upon it each year or add something, but I do think it's useful information.
Absolutely. And just one little note too, there is ongoing work with StatsCan and the RCP is running a pilot project right now, just all around this disaggregated data and how to collect it. The challenges come with that, and then how to report out on it. So I think that will also inform a lot of this discussion.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks. Alejandro?
The 11 containment prisoners book, or like records. So 75 people were, there were 77 people. There is a gap of 364. Does that mean that there were like multiple offenders that were one with 2 times, one with 364 times? Is there a way to break down like someone did 5, someone like a percentage over 10? Would that help or?
Well, I mean, we can do it. It would take a lot more work. I don't know. We're at the direction of the board when it comes to that. I don't know how useful that would be.
Because I think for me, if I see that that person is over 50, so then that for me, that's an issue. If there are like 150 people doing twice, then maybe it's just, but if you have someone that is a chronic offender, would that be helpful for them to have someone that has been booked more than, I don't know what the threshold, 25, 30?
Again, it's up to the board, but again, we've taken out the multiple offender so that it doesn't skew the data, because that's the original work that Inspector Dudar did. It was quite skewed because you could have one individual through a million different reasons is a frequent flyer for a period of time. And that will skew your data, in my opinion. But again, it's up to the board, whatever the chair of the board wishes to do.
I guess I'm not sure what we would do with that information.
Yeah, can we-
I mean, I guess if we wanted to advocate for the legal system to do different things, then
It could be mental health, if someone is doing like 75, the same
Yeah.
person.
So I suggest there's 2 separate things we're looking at here. One has to do with actually better understanding demographics of who we interact with. And the other thing is discussing sort of other trends that are happening around who's being incarcerated and
Which we are working with the provincial government, has put forward a lot of money in regards to chronic offenders, which we've accessed funding to assist with that. So we do look at that, and then we bring forward individuals that meet a certain criteria that there might be some provincial funding that will assist us to look at options to deal with. But it's kind of a separate than this audit or analysis process.
Okay, Patrick, I think.
I'm wondering if we can get a little more granular with the residential status variable, especially the outside jurisdiction. I'd like to see a breakdown of specifically where those folks are coming from, especially from a staffing perspective. I think we've looked at sworn membership staffing fairly myopically from a population of our city level, but I mean, we find trends in terms of where the members are coming from outside of New Westminster and places like Surrey, Burnaby, presumably being near us, that contribute to some of that. As those populations keep growing too, presumably we'll have more outsiders being arrested in the city, and that's another discussion in terms of sworn membership staffing is handling the outsider.
Right.
So I'd like to see more granular data there.
Absolutely.
Where specifically they're
And I think another thing that might be helpful is to understand a bit what other municipal police forces are seeing with other jurisdictions. Like is New West getting double the amount? Or are we kind of in line with what the other municipal forces are seeing in terms of?
We could try to get that. Sure.
Drew.
How is residential status determined? I was surprised at how low, no offense to Dress was, to be honest, with only 2 people booked. Is it self-reported? Is it in like that? How does that?
There's many different ways it's done. And that's kind of the challenge when you get into any data collection, whether it's any of the categories captured here. So part of it is, yes, self-reported. Also, our computer system self-populates. So you could have simply a carryover data that's occurred where maybe that's not the most accurate. Sometimes because this covers many different situations of individuals coming into our lodge here. And one area which I wish we weren't. And I use that word, I use that word very, I use that word very purposely because, you know, we bring individuals that are intoxicated here. And I don't feel that that is a proper place to have individuals that are intoxicated. Vancouver has different options. We do not. Something that I'd love for the province to get involved in. But so, you know, some people are not in the shape to be able to respond sometimes to those. So sometimes either you're gonna fall into some of those other categories, like not listed, or there's just the member has to, or the jail staff have to kind of come to a determination. So it's not the cleanest way to get data for sure. But so we just do the best that we can. And a lot of folks, you know, they'll have ID or something and you go off of that. That may not even be accurate. So a lot of it really comes down to the individual telling you where they live.
I mean, I think that's pretty common, those issues. with many.
For sure.
Okay, I would actually repeat some of the things I've heard is one thing is comparative to, I know that, I assume that it's only municipal services that are collecting this data, not the RCMP at national level the same way, or?
The RCMP do fall under the provincial police staff. How they're doing it, I don't know.
Right.
How anyone else is doing it, actually, I don't know.
Right, that's the question I was gonna ask, how do we compare to what other cities are doing? And this is, I imagine, not standardized data collection in any sense, so they're just asking you to collect some data so you can report it, but there is no requirement for you to meet a specific requirement of them, so it might not be useful to compare to other
Which I find weird, like, you know, we have lots of required data in healthcare, but it's like very specific in how they ask for it, like they're standard. So I'm surprised they ask for this without any.
Some of the things, conversations that have been going on, I know Inspector Dudar was involved in this, is even getting a standardized audit course for policing. There used to be one. So I think that because all of these points you're bringing up, you're right. There's no standardized way of doing it. But I also think that this is going to develop as we move forward through this, the next few years.
Okay, and these criteria are provincial required, like the criteria you have for ethnicity aren't necessarily the ones that align with the census data that we collect in the city. Or the city that is collected on behalf of the city or collected by the census. So these are criteria that come from the police, coming from provincial policing.
They come from the computer system that we use. Those are the options available.
Okay, and do we ask folks to self-report this, or do the police make a determination based on? How do I determine if a person is Caucasian or not? I guess.
The same kind of process we talked about on address.
Right.
Self-identification, carrying over data from previous ones, observations by the staff doing in all of those things. So again, not a super accurate way of doing it.
Okay, thanks. There's a bit of, I think, direction there from the board around what we might want to see, how we might want to see this improved in future years, but I don't think that's, I think you take that as instruction as opposed to, we don't need a motion to.
Yeah, if I could offer one thing, I would suggest or ask the board if this would work for you. We'll come back in, say, September, October with those same categories and simply ask, what would the board like us to look at for 2025?
Yeah.
So then A, you know what's coming. B, we have some heads up so we can start working on it. So if we do want to focus back on the same category, we can, or we can change it. If that works. I'd say maybe the September board meeting, we can come back to the board and look at that. Okay.
Okay, great.
Note of that also.
Okay, so then that, can I get a motion to receive? Moved and seconded, all in favor, all opposed, carried. 2.8 correspondence. This is just about the BC APB conference correspondence we got. Being relatively new to this role, I'm not clear on this call for potential resolutions. Is this something that the board, that we typically have done in the past? Do we send resolutions to this? Is this a meeting where they have a series of resolutions they go through, or is it something where occasionally someone has a resolution because they have an issue of own to pick? Do you have any recollection of?
I don't think the chief goes to that. That's our police governance, isn't it? Police board, BCAPB.
I go to the BCAPB, but I don't go to your AGM. That's part of the BCAPB. Traditionally, our board hasn't put forward motions, but I'd say it's similar. Best example I could give you is kind of how council would bring forward motions to go to the new PCM. So we never had any, but traditionally, some boards have forwarded them to the main body of the BCAPB, and then they would bring them forward for discussion at the AGM. I don't know how many have ever come forward to the
So I
AGM.
went last year. There was like I feel like maybe around 5.
Oh, okay.
Some of them like were kind of, it's like a mixed bag of like applicability in some ways. To be honest.
Is this publicly reported, the results of CP
I
AGM?
can't find anything, I Googled it, I can't find any.
So it's just like basically the conference happens and then the AGM's like the last,
Yeah.
on the Friday in the afternoon. I attended for Drew, so, and
Yeah.
so I don't know what, because I'm not with acutely involved, I don't know what the like documentation looks like afterwards, but like some of the resolutions, we actually would need the police, like the operational teams there, like I can think one of them that I wasn't supportive of was they wanted Ecom to start answering the calls like Ecom, not like the police force that they were answering for. So they couldn't be blamed anymore, like and I said, well, all the I've actually worked with call centers and all of them answer for as if they're the company that you're doing that. Like, I don't think this is a call we can make in this
Right.
venue, right? So, that has impact as well. People be like, I'm like, Ecom, I don't know what that is, right?
Right.
So that's kind of something that's.
So it's operational level stuff that,
That was an example where I was like, I don't think we can move forward on, but.
okay. Nothing?
Just to note, some of, having now gone to one BCA meeting as a representative, some of the issues we.
We are in an open meeting, so don't discuss anything that happened close, okay? Yeah.
On board with that. Some of the issues we've talked about here, they've already flagged for the province in terms of issues collectively we're having as police boards. So for instance, Econ on one and then GIBC as well. So those are kind of our 2 main talking points over time and they've been addressed already. So I don't really see the value of going into those directly in terms of this process.
Okay, yeah. Well, sorry, Mary.
I thank you for saying that. I was going to ask if we wanted to consider any kind of advocacy or resolution related to Ecom and to the JI. So when you say that it's being discussed, does that mean they are working on resolutions for that already, or they're already?
Not necessarily resolutions, but they've flagged these issues with the province as a CAA.
So it would be redundant then,
I think
in your
so.
opinion?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And I remind police board that we requested council to send a resolution regarding Ecom to the Lower Mainland Local Government Association, and that was approved by council. Oh, no, it's not yet approved by council. It's on the agenda to council, so it may be going forward from council on
Okay,
our advocacy on that side, so.
okay, all right, if you think that that's being discussed already, then that's fine. Okay.
So let's keep that in mind, folks, for as we go through this work over the next year, that this is an avenue for us to do advocacy if we want to. Yeah, if we do find a specific call we want to take to the province, then this is an opportunity available to us. The other thing I wanted to ask is anyone planning on attending this conference? I think we had press ganged Patrick into representing us on that board for a while. I am not able, I simply don't have time those 2 days to attend this conference. So I don't need you to answer now, but I think it would be, I think it's good for us to have presence in there, even if, I can't be there, but I think it'd be good for us to have presence there, at least so we can report back on what's going on and to make sure that New Westminster is represented at that conference. And remember, the police board will cover costs of your attendance at the conference. It's in Vancouver, so it shouldn't be expensive. Yeah, if anyone's interested, please get back in touch, I guess through me or through the.
Or let Daisy know when she
Let
can
Daisy
make it.
know.
Yeah.
Are
Alejandro?
you planning to go, Patrick?
I can't go on the 11th. So.
Yeah, that's it. We can have a chat offline about that. I just want to encourage folks, if they do want to attend, it's useful. It will be useful to attend. Anything we can do to increase our knowledge about this job. We all come into this as kind of community volunteers. And so anything that can increase your knowledge about how police boards operate, I think is really useful, a useful way to spend time. So I'd encourage folks who are available to attend. And with that, I guess we have a motion to receive the correspondence under 2.8. All in favor? All opposed? Carried. Item 3.1, request for board direction on public engagement for new SPD annual budget. You wanna?
Thank you very much. I guess I'll be as quick as I can on this topic. If the board recalls back in June of 2023, we met at Queen's Park Arena, and Jennifer Miller from the city came forward with a detailed report, which is attached to this report, and laid out a couple of different areas and ways that the city engages, and also gives the board some options. The board came out of that meeting directing the department and staff to look at starting this process early in 2024, being now. So we're just bringing it forward to really kind of see what's the board's preference in regards to how we do this work? Do you want us to team up with the city and work with them to garner feedback from the community in regards to the budget, or would you like to do this on our own, looking at some type of surveying or public engagement? I don't have a lot of details to share with the board on what the city's planning on doing. I think that's still a little bit of a work in progress, timelines, et cetera. Jacqueline and I were in a meeting recently, and I think that some of those areas are still being discussed and what it's going to look like, and I'm sure the mayor might have some insight. But so I can't tell you exactly what it's going to look like with the city, but I think that really what we need from the board is just, do you want us to work with the city, or would you like us to work our own? That's the direction we're looking for.
So maybe I'll make a few comments in there. Naturally, the city has a public engagement staff, and to be clear, public engagement staff is very separate from our communications staff. They're not there putting out press releases to the public. They're actually involved in active community engagement and running surveys and doing work through Be Heard New West, mostly through our online portal, but also through public events to actively engage information and find out where the community is at on issues. We don't necessarily have that capacity here in the police board. The police board has zero capacity to do that work. The police department has some capacity to do public engagement but it's the city has heavier resources than we do to do this and to do it in a mindful way. We've had a lot of discussion in the city over the last couple of years about what mindful engagement is, about why bother asking the public questions if you don't know what information you want to get from them, if you don't have any idea how what they tell you is going to provide change in how you do things, right? You need to go into the public engagement with an understanding that the information you're receiving is useful for something, not just for you, because you're not wasting your time, but also for people you're engaging with, so they're not wasting their time in talking to you. So I would lean towards us allowing the city to take that load to do that work. However, I think that the city has no idea what questions the police board wants answered or how the police board is going to use the information they collect in their decision making. So I'd love to hear from folks around here. And maybe we need another meeting for us as a police board to just discuss what do we want from public engagement, what questions do we need answered. But how do you want to take part in this? I guess is the open-ended question I'm putting in front of you. I saw some hands up until I started talking. So whose hands were up? Drew, go ahead.
I agree the city has the capacity. I think the thing for me, I was just looking at the visual, and we talked about this before, is and perhaps we do need another session to sort of plan through what we want and how it's framed, because the visual that I'm looking at is the one where it just has the lump of police services as 29% of the city's budget, but it's not represented the same way as any of the other services. So I think that's a piece that we need to sort of work through what that would look like and how that would be framed, because we're not, as we've talked about before, we're not comparing apples to apples in that. But I would suggest we probably should need a bit of a working session to sort of map out what do we want and how are we going to use that. Because I completely agree with the point of if we're not going to do anything with it, then we shouldn't bother. So we need to be clear as a board, what information do we want and how we use it.
Anyone else?
I was gonna say the same thing, wanting to make sure that like what the city's representing for the police in terms of like what they're putting out there has been vetted by the force and the board, because it does cause some confusion because it's not apples to apples. And then I think maybe a couple specific questions for that, using some of the comments we got last time to get more deeper, because it was just saying something like it's too big a part of the budget. Well, that's not really like helpful for us, like, you know what I mean? So I think that we want to include something but to get a little bit better information, and I'm open to how like the city could kind of guide that, but I think maybe re-looking at what the feedback we were getting and seeing what kind of questions would like pull out better information.
Mary?
Not really different from, either of your comments. I also don't think we really have the capacity to do it in-house in an engagement way. We do comms, but not engagement, which is a bit different. I guess if we had the city do it, I would want to understand how much can we contribute? Like, how much information will they take from us, that we can use to help frame what kind of engagement they do about the police. So I think we do have to do our own work internally and then try to understand how much the city will allow us to sort of decide our own communication within their their engagement piece as well.
Okay, I'm hearing that we want, excuse me, we want to collaborate with the city on engagement efforts. I'm hearing that as the option that the board seems to hear. The other part of clarification on the purpose and expected outcomes, maybe we need to get the public engagement folks to come in and have a public engagement session with us. If they, I don't know if they're amenable to doing that. Do you know the timing for when they wanted? If you had the communications with Jennifer, with the city staff, do we know the timing?
I know for the budget engagement, it's really led by the finance team.
Yeah.
The engagement team does a lot of the work, but the questions that are created are really led by the finance team.
Okay,
I'll ask Haley to jump in here in a second, but I just want to be clear. Jennifer made it very clear all along, and Haley probably will reiterate this, is that, to your point, a lot of this is going to be work we're going to have to do and provide to the city. They don't have the capacity, well, even the expertise, but the ability to do all that. But Haley, could you just maybe add some?
Yeah, I spoke with Jennifer and it was, the direction was they'd be happy to support NWPD and budget engagement, but she really wanted to know what is up for change. And that direction she asked come from the police. And what can the public influence? Right.
So, I mean, we can set up, we can ask Jennifer for some more of her time to set up some type of meeting, whether it's a special meeting or just part of your regular meeting and flesh out some of these points. As I look at Haley to.
And knowing the timeline would be helpful.
Yeah, as per timeline, I think that would likely be driven from finance as well in terms of when they're looking to move along for their budget next year. But I would definitely say probably earlier the better to get on, to get prepared.
I agree.
Yeah.
So we do not have a March meeting scheduled. But we may have an opportunity to hold a special meeting in March if the police board is amenable to actually have this discussion. If we can meet for even just an hour and actually go through this discussion and I don't know, again, I don't want to take up the city staff's time. If they're amenable with the city staff to spend an hour with us or 2 hours with us and go through this discussion, I think that would probably be a good way for us to do it and really just kind of workshop that as a police board. And I don't necessarily think we need staff support from the police to do that. I think it's just a matter of us.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'd like Haley to be part of whatever conversation because Haley will be our liaison with Jennifer and that, but I know we can easily support the board in whatever way it's needed.
Okay, so maybe we should get a motion to sort of, because we are kind of starting to direct resources a little bit here towards something. So if the board thinks it's a good idea for us to maybe have a special meeting to workshop this just as a board with limited staff support, perhaps in March, recognize we don't have a police board meeting in March. Is that something the board, please have oh, you're moving that?
Yeah.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Okay, I don't see any other comments or questions about that. Seeing none, all in favor, all opposed, carried. Was that a vague enough motion? I can't remember.
I got it.
You got it, okay.
Thanks for that. And I think it's going to really assist us moving forward into the future years.
Yeah, and I don't want to exclude, I just don't want to create more work for
No,
staff.
yeah, no,
if we
absolutely.
take it permanent, but I think, but
Especially over spring break,
yeah, okay,
the depth of
okay. Yeah.
Just as a question, do we
Yes.
have to direct NWP in terms of our engagement with the city now as well, or is that just for information?
I think that'll come out of that follow-up meeting, won't it?
Okay,
Yeah, I think a lot of those questions.
okay.
Yeah, it'll come out of that follow-up meeting, I think, that's, yeah. Okay, 4.1,
Very quickly,
Okay.
as the mayor's already kind of talked about, your BCAPB annual general meetings coming up, as usually happens, a sponsorship request. Though I see the mayor is now the chair of the Abbotsford Police Board in the correspondence. Goodness, you know, I don't know what you're doing here, but shit, when's the meeting?
Um,
Why don't you agree that Abbotsford?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I move that Abbotsford commit to funding the whole thing.
The whole conference.
I can advise the board that last year you paid for a lunch, which was $700. I see costs have gone up, but last year you did sponsored a meal for $700. But I will leave it with the board on what you'd like to do this year.
So it's in front of the board. Would the board like to join our regional colleagues and sponsor a lunch or a meal with the at the BCAPD conference?
What is our delegate?
Well, they have a limited budget to do these kind of things themselves, so they need the money to be able to run the conference. So whatever we can contribute is helpful, even coffee.
Are you suggesting a coffee break?
That would be my suggestion, sure.
Okay,
Coffee break.
Coffee break?
Sure. That's moved and that is seconded. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Carried. Thank you. And that adjourns our open meeting.
Awesome.
So I move to adjourn. Move to adjourn. All moved, seconded, all in favor, all opposed, carried. Thanks, folks.